Welcome to Talking Industrial Automation, a podcast where you get to know the people who make modern industrial automation possible. You will get to hear from CSIA system integrators and industry partners to get a better understanding of how they help their clients solve process challenges and how they've earned success in their careers. Along the way, we will touch on system integration best practices, technology, trends, and challenges. Whether you are a manufacturer, end user, supplier, or system integrator, you will enjoy the insights these industry professionals bring to this podcast. Let's get started. Hi, my name is Lisa Richter, the host of Talking Industrial Automation, a podcast where you get to know the people who make modern industrial automation and processing possible. In today's episode, we're talking industrial automation with Brandon Umscheid, who is Director of Industrial Automation for the Baker Group based in Des Moines, Iowa. Brandon started his career as an electrical controls engineer managing capital projects, serving as a PLC programmer and project manager on a wide range of projects, including funds requests and justification to completion, while doing all of the electrical drawings, BOM, and programming. He then pivoted to maintenance manager to help his plant focus on reliability-centered maintenance. And in this role, he has developed many leadership skills and drives innovation to grow and change at the Baker Group's plant operations. Brandon, welcome to the podcast. Let's get started with your origin story. How did you end up here?
Yeah, so it's actually kind of funny. I started after high school. I was going to be a math teacher, so that was kind of the path I was going to go to, and then I pivoted and I actually joined the military straight out of high school. So 17 years old, joined the Army, did a deployment. At that point in time, decided whether or not I was going to continue my career, decided I wanted to get in engineering, so left the Army and the military, went to Iowa State University, actually started as a computer engineer and switched over to electrical engineering. Really loved the hands-on application of putting code to something and then seeing something actually turn into something. It was really great.
What kinds of projects did you work on in school and stuff like that?
Yeah, one of the probably the project that was the coolest for me, right? So again, I started out computer engineering, which is traditionally a lot more just programming, text-based stuff, kind of more applications. The one class that was really cool was embedded systems, where you actually had a Roomba robot and they had an Arduino controller on it. And that really taught us a lot about the differences of digital signals and analog signals and scaling them. And the ultimate goal of the class was to actually have the robot kind of be like a Mars rover. And you use the different sensors to interact with the PLC, and you had to navigate around a course and make sure you didn't crash into stuff and collect the thing you needed to, then get to the escape ground. That was probably the funnest course I ever had.
Yeah, it sounds fun. For somebody like you, that sounds fun. Let's put it that way. So tell me a little bit about how you talk to other people about what it is that you do. Like, say if you have to explain to your auntie or somebody like that, how do you explain it about what it is that you do?
Yeah, and people in this field will obviously understand what industrial automation is, but the typical person walking down the street, it's like, automation, you mean like a robot? Well, yeah, but there's a lot more to it, right? So usually I start really simple. Talk about, hey, you walk into Walmart. When you walk to Walmart, what's the first thing that happens, right? You walk to the door and the door opens. Well, how does that door know that you're there, right? There's a sensing device. That sensing device senses you, takes the input, and then it drives an output, which is the motor on the door to open the motor. Then again, people can understand that, attribute it. So then I kind of get to like home HVAC systems. How does your house stay cool in the summer or warm in the winter? Right, there's a controller that's on your furnace and your air conditioning system. Again, it takes a temperature in your room, and it drives either to turn a heater on or an air conditioner to keep things cool. And then from there, you kind of tailor it a little bit more and get into industrial automation. It's like, well, hey, oil, right? Everyone knows about oil and gas, and then it comes from crude oil that gets pumped out of the ground, and then somehow you pull up to the gas station, you have gasoline. Like there's a refining process that gets there, that there's a lot of pumps and tanks and vessels and cool chemistry stuff that's probably even a little bit above my grade when it comes to that fun stuff, right? But automation drives all that stuff with pumps and valves. And then you kind of tailor back to even robotics, how robots, you think of the automotive industry is usually where a lot of people see robots, where robots are sitting there doing welds on cars and they have vision systems and stuff. So really just kind of start simple and then drive it really up to a complex aspect.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. So let's talk a little bit about the Baker Group more specifically. Tell me about its evolution. How did it begin and how has it grown or evolved over the years?
Yeah, so Baker Group's a really interesting company because it actually started in 1963 as a mechanical contractor. So our owner, actually fresh out of the Navy, decided to start his own company. He was going around doing piping projects and mechanical type stuff. Fast forward a few years, we were doing mechanical systems for companies and automation, right? Obviously, for building, automation can control the systems going there. So in 1986, we started a BAS group that did traditional commercial controls. With that, in the market that we lived in, we had some industrial clients that did HVAC, but they really wanted their industrial control zone systems. They wanted a little something more robust or reliable. So we always kind of had a couple people that did PLC programming, but very small. And then, kind of the early 2000s is when the data center market really just started to boom in Iowa as well. I came over and joined Baker Group in 2020 on a very strategic path to try to grow our industrial automation capability. So, again, unique company. We even have the facet of building automation, now industrial automation, and then for some of the aspects like data centers, we're merging the two together to do building automation with PLCs.
Yeah, in terms of location, are you more of a regional company, like you're mostly working in Iowa or nationwide? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Baker Group's headquarters is in Ankeny, Iowa, which is just tad north of the Des Moines city. We also have offices in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, which covers the eastern portion of the state. A couple of years ago, even 2 years ago, we opened an office in Kansas City, Missouri, and we're currently on a very large job site with an office that we're just starting up in Louisville, Kentucky. So we would tell people that we're very much a Midwest-focused regional contractor, and we do have a few regional offices.
Understand. Let me ask you a question. Don't get mad. How many people in your life truly understand what it is that you do? I'm willing to guess the answer is not too many. I get it. So many of us toil in anonymity. But what if I told you that I have a place where you can go to meet and talk and commiserate with people who do understand what you do because they do the same thing? Amazing, I know. But that's really the bottom line what CSIA is all about. And recently, we've expanded our learning and networking opportunities to help you find your people. We are calling them special interest groups. These groups are aligned around topics such as emerging leaders or marketing, and they meet virtually throughout the year with some plans for meeting in person as well, probably in conjunction with the CSIA annual conference. We will be bringing more online throughout the year, but for now, if either of those topics sound interesting, go to www.controlsys.org/events to check out what we have lined up. Full disclosure, you do need to be a member of CSIA to join the marketing SIG, but the emerging leaders one is open to anyone who wants to give it a try. So why not take a minute and check out the upcoming schedule at www.controlsys.org/events. Your people are waiting. Yeah, so you mentioned data centers is something that you guys are working on. Are there other industries that you're really specializing in or is part of your portfolio?
Yeah, so again, data centers is a big, easy one because of our building automation natural progression in there. The other aspect, again, our company's a little bit bigger, so we actually have an EPC arm of our company that focuses very heavy in process systems and process integration, process automation, PNIDs, fabrication. So having industrial automation as part of that portfolio makes us an actual turnkey contractor in that space because we can do full-fledged design all the way to implementation to commissioning to run that. Then we also do ag, Iowa, Midwest. We're very heavy in the ag industry here, so a lot of ag clients, food and bev, and then oil and gas as well.
I was recently at the Rockwell Automation Fair, as were you, and one of our employees from one of our members came up because he is Brazilian, based in Brazil, but doing a job here in the United States, but it's soybeans in like southern Illinois. And imagine that, like you're a young man all the way from Brazil and there you are in little southern Illinois. Like, is there even a restaurant? He's like, yeah, there's one. There's one restaurant. So let's talk a little bit more specifically about what's happening recently and what you expect for the company in the next 12 to 24 months.
Yeah, we have, as a company, and even then, again, as the automation business unit, have seen substantial growth over the past couple of years. A lot of it being data center driven, a lot of customers really trying to focus on modular construction and fabrication. Again, our backlog has grown significantly to where we're almost doubled in our revenue from where we were a couple of years ago, and there doesn't seem to be an end in sight. So it's a beautiful thing as a company. We're also employee owned. So, right, as an employee owner, seeing that wonderful growth is also great coming back to us employees too.
Yeah, 100%. So tell me a little bit, you mentioned you're employee owned, but what else is unique about you and how you approach a project?
Yeah. So again, this is kind of a Baker Group culture concentric thing, right? And this really helped us in this new market. Thinking outside of the box, right? There's always the traditional way of doing something or how you can build or go about doing a project. Baker Group, we really think outside the box of, customer brings us a problem they have, and instead of just doing the status quo, we're really trying to figure out different angles or different ways, whether it's modeling or prefabricating something. Again, from like an automation perspective, we don't necessarily build machines, but how much, can you build small pieces of equipment? Then on the automation side, integrate them to where we can actually test them, have them connected, checked out, and almost partially commissioned in a fat sense, to where you go to do your site acceptance test and you're way ahead of the ball game when it comes to doing that stuff. And we really try to look at those and view those as a customer perspective, right? If I was the customer, what do I really care about and what is most important to me?
Yeah, so obviously you have repeat business. Why do you think those customers come back to you for project after project?
Yeah, so I think that the biggest one in our industry is trust, right? As a system integrator, if you can't execute and do the things that your customers want, right, that trust just kind of degrades, and ultimately that's really what grows those relationships. Relationships are huge for us. Most of our work is repeat customers. From a company perspective, we have very high integrity and ownership. Again, we treat that customer, that project, that facility like we were going to own that and run it long term because we have that relationship in there. So again, just really executing, making sure you're honest with your customers, making sure you're consistent, and then you actually deliver.
Quick question. Are you a CSA member? If so, I need you to do something for me. I need you to go to www.controlsys.org/renew and follow the instructions there to renew your membership. It's literally as easy as reviewing your organization info, selecting your add-ons like benchmarking reports or marketing tools, and then hitting return. And it will ensure that you and your entire team won't miss any member benefit, such as being eligible to attend the CSIA conference or accessing content behind the member wall, like the recent economic and labor update for system integrators. So please, take 2 ticks and get this sorted. And if you're not a CSA member, what are you waiting for? Let's get this party started. What advice would you give a prospective customer researching you versus your competitor?
I'd love to say that we have a wonderful relationship. Again, we talk about that repeat customer references. We're labeled as a system integrator, but what I always tell people, we're a solutions provider. And the easiest way to answer that would be drop some references, right? Let us give you some customer names of customers we worked with. You can ask them how we work and how we operate. Then, what's your approach? How do you want to handle this project? Come visit and discuss. And today after COVID, right, everyone loves to do virtual. I mean, hey, we're on a podcast right now, but getting in person with some people, seeing your facility, seeing their facility, and really talk and discuss and sit down and figure out, is this relationship, does this feel like a good mix?
What challenges are your customers facing right now?
Yeah, so what we see on the industrial automation side, really resources, right? And when I say resources, it's resources of people that can actually run production equipment, right? The actual operators that know how to operate equipment, as well as engineers that can do the work themselves, right? There's some customers we have that actually have some engineers that can do the work. There's customers that we have that don't have. In most instances, even if they do have them, they're so busy, there's so many things they want to do, they don't have the resources to tackle it. And at the same time is, not knowing what they want or how to get it done. even if you might know how to program a PLC, there might be something like, let's say, an MES implication or something where you're trying to integrate different things, or maybe it's a robotics project, right? And you've never done robotics, right? Where those are other outside resources that come in, be experts in their field to try to help solve problems.
In your opinion, what is the biggest challenge facing the automation marketplace today and coming up in the future?
Yeah, and I'll go right back to the last question. We talked about resources, right? Labor, both automation wise as well as production. I mean, it's no secret that the baby boomers are starting to retire now, right? And they had a lot of pride in their work. A lot of the people that are entering the workforce right now, specifically in manufacturing, they don't necessarily have that same pride and mentality where they're just like, hey, I'm here. What button do I got to push? How do I got to do this? And then same thing in automation, right? These same manufacturers, they want to do a lot of these projects themselves, and the talent pool is just not out there to try to do all these projects and stuff. So labor is definitely the biggest one.
Yeah, I would say too that when baby boomers started work, there was an implicit contract that I'm going to work for this company maybe for the rest of my life, right? That was kind of like I said, the implicit contract. And now as people are coming into the workforce, that contract isn't in place anymore. So it's maybe not necessarily that the younger people don't have the same pride in their work, is that they know it's a little bit more, it's not as long, maybe the relationship isn't going to be completely long term, right? That may be factoring into it as well. Let's talk about why Baker Group became a member of CSIA.
Yeah. So again, I came in from a manufacturing background, came to Baker Group again, trying to start a system integrator business a little bit. Brand new 2020, we didn't really have I wouldn't necessarily say we were a system integrator at that time. So I got hired in to try to grow and facilitate how to go. And it was, well, gosh, if I want to do this, I probably should find some other people that know what they're doing. Started doing some web research and come across an area that says Control System Integrator Association. Like, well, what better association to look and join at? So signed up, attended the first conference. Again, it wasn't in 2020, obviously, because of COVID, but that first one that came back, it was a great time. And it was just a perfect match with knowing that it was a community and a group that was all about sharing and growing the industry.
Yeah. So let's talk about 2020, because 2020 was like 10 years, right? Like there's like up until March, at least in the US, and then there was like March to like June, and then the rest as we adjusted. So when you say you were brand new in 2020, at what point were you brand new?
Oh, very interesting. So again, Iowa, at that point in time, this was very interesting, right? I was doing my interview with a new company. COVID was a thing, but it wasn't really a thing in Iowa yet. It kind of hit the coast in New York. I was actually at the point to where was going to start the week of March Madness tournament. I had initially planned to have my last day of my old company on a Wednesday. I was going to take Thursday, Friday off. And then that Sunday, they canceled everything, right? Rudy Gobert, I think, was the Utah Jazz player, tested positive. All of a sudden, the NBA shut down, then the NCAA shut down. So it was a very, very interesting time. The first day I showed up, 3/4 of my team were not in the office. My boss was there, and we were having, virtual happy hours. I don't think I met some of my coworkers for 6 months when I first started.
It's so crazy to think about that. What I think about is how, I don't know, blithe we were. Like, we saw what Italy was going through, but we're over here like, oh, yeah, 2 weeks. 2 weeks and we'll have this, licked and split. No problem. So just idealists, I guess.
Definitely a weird time.
Yeah, totally a weird time. So a little bit more about CSIA. What would you say is the biggest benefit of CSIA membership for Baker Group?
For some of the reasons why we wanted to join, right, is there's a promise of community, right? You show up to these events, it's just a whole lot of different system integrators of all different sizes. There were really none too big or none too small. There's companies that are represented there from every spectrum, where you just have a couple person shop up to the multi-million-dollar companies that are doing a lot. And the other things that it brings, right? So one of the purposes of that community was to try to share best practices. CSIA has the best practices book. It has that information. We've actually had 4 people from our company go through the best practices workshop at the CSIA conference, right? And then taking those different things, those processes, and then integrating them into our systems and the way we do business have been huge for us. I'd be remiss if I didn't share peer groups. That was one of the first things when I went to the first CSIA conference. It's like, well, hey, what are you here for? It's like the peer groups, the community. And then we joined, a couple of us joined peer groups, and it's just been tremendous.
Awesome. That's really great. So how should a customer go about choosing a system integrator?
Yeah. So a lot of it's, doing some research on the company, trying to figure out what the capabilities are. And some customers really struggle like what they really need. They're not sure 100% what they want. So again, most people nowadays will do some research on the internet, go find out. And I would just say that some people don't put as much value into their website as they probably should. Definitely reach out to peers, maybe other contractors. If you're in a manufacturing setting, is there another manufacturer that is around you that, again, you have a community with, you can share and ask, right? A lot of it's word of mouth. And then definitely sit down when you try to talk to someone, discuss your challenge and really have an open, honest conversation about what you're looking for and what that integrator can actually do to try to match with that.
I would say people do not Google themselves enough. Fairly regularly, you should sit down and Google the company name and see what comes up. Maybe it's Glassdoor and there's some, unhappy ex-employees like making trouble over there or whatever, your LinkedIn profile, if that's popping up, and just making sure that they look professional and nice and have all the information that's appropriate for a prospective customer to see, right? I'm glad you brought that up. All right, so final question. What is the best advice you could give your younger self just getting started?
Yeah, and I kind of told you, right? I came out of the military, I went to college, then kind of joined the manufacturing space, industrial automation. At that point in time, it was, just getting things done and focusing on work was always the top priority. And now that I'm a little bit later in my career, right, leadership, so people are the most important resource. There's no question about that. Without good people around you, things just don't execute. And then the same aspect that relationships and trust can go a long way. Building that relationship with your customer, building that relationship with your distributor, your manufacturer, relationships internally with your own company, right? People always work harder and they work better when there's a positive attitude and they like working with each other. So definitely would tell my younger self, people are important and relationships matter.
Well, that's it for today's episode of Talking Industrial Automation. If you are interested in learning more about Brandon or the Baker Group, you can find them on the CSIA Industrial Automation Exchange at www.csiexchange.com. Thanks for listening, and thank you, Brandon, for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
If you enjoy this podcast, please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also really help the show by leaving a review and sharing with colleagues. We're all just slaves to the algorithm now, so I gotta ask. Thanks for listening to the Talking Industrial Automation podcast. Thanks also to bensound.com and Wistia for the music bumpers. Until next time.